everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care podcast and video. I'm Dwayne, and I'm a certified RV inspector, and today we're going to be talking about Airstream travel trailers. And we're going to be answering the question, is Airstream worth it? You know, Airstreams have been in business for almost 90 years now. That is an incredible achievement in this day and age. Unlike most RVs, they've hardly changed the appearance of their product in all of that time either. So it's kind of very unique. You see lots of Airstreams on the road today. In fact, they're probably more popular now than they ever have been. But that still leads us back to our original question, is Airstream worth the money? Well, let's discuss the pros and the cons. And the number one pro to start with is the quality, workmanship, and materials. Airstream uses a steel frame with an aluminum shell that's riveted onto it. Now, does that remind you of anything? Well, it should. In the World War II era, that's how they built airplanes. And they made them very light and very strong as a result of that. So Airstream has chosen to use that method of construction for their travel trailers. Does it work? Well, generally speaking, I would say yes, because Airstream says that almost 70% of all the Airstreams that have ever been made are still in use today. That brings us to our second pro. They just last longer than most other travel trailers. In fact, there's some of the Airstream travel trailers from the 1930s, when the company first began, that are still in use today. How many travel trailer manufacturers do you know of today that are projecting that in 90 years, their products are still going to be happily going down the highway? Not many. That brings us to our next pro. There's extremely high customer satisfaction with Airstream itself and with the company. You know, when you read any reviews online about Airstreams and the owners are talking about them, they're overwhelmingly happy with them. They do mention certain things that they'd like to see better, but when they're asked if they're pleased with the product and the service they've received, they overwhelmingly say yes. So that is really something that most RV manufacturers should aspire to, because there's an incredible high customer satisfaction with Airstream travel trailers. Next on the list of pros is that they're aerodynamic going down the road and have a low profile. What does that mean? Well, it transfers into providing great fuel mileage for those that are towing Airstream travel trailers, and that's a big pro. The next pro is incredibly high resale values. It's really amazing how often you read people that own Airstreams or have owned them talk about their resale value. In fact, many will give you stories of how they bought their Airstream years ago, maybe decades ago, and then turned around and sold it for more than they bought it for. Now, that doesn't always happen, but it is an established fact that Airstream travel trailers have an incredibly high resale value. The final pro we're going to talk about today is that there is a unique, tight-knit, and social community of Airstream owners. So if you want to be part of a community, you want to feel like you're in with a group that's giving you a lot of help, a lot of support, and wants to enjoy social activities together, then get an Airstream, because there's a real collection of communities that work together among those owners. Well, now that brings us to the cons of Airstream travel trailers, because nothing is perfect. The number one con, and the reason why we're talking about this video, is the high cost. Remember, we're trying to answer the question, is Airstream worth the money? Well, they are far more expensive than most travel trailers. I mean, when you get up to the size Airstreams where you normally have two people living fairly comfortably in them, well, then you're starting in the $80,000 to $90,000 range, and it goes up from there. It's really not uncommon to spend $150,000 for an Airstream travel trailer. That's way most than most travel trailer brands. So it can be considered a con because not a lot of people can afford that. Number 2 on the con list is no slides. Now, there was a time that Airstream actually built some that had slides in them, but they stopped that, and they haven't done that for a while. So what does that mean? Well, less living area than you're going to find in most other travel trailers. In fact, if you're going to buy an Airstream, expect to be living in less than 200 square feet. Now, the third con we're going to talk about today is that beautiful aluminum skin. You know, it looks so nice, but as many Airstream owners will tell you, it's easily damaged. It can be easily scratched and very easily dented. And if you want to fix that, it's not going to be cheap. So they're very expensive to repair, and that could be a con. The next con is there's very limited outside storage space. You know how most travel trailers have that little storage area right up front on the bottom? Well, not Airstream. They generally only have one storage space, and it's most often in the back, and it fills up very fast. So keep that in mind if you're considering an Airstream travel trailer. The next con for Airstreams is that the kitchens are usually very small. You know, when you're a cook and you like to cook a lot, you like to have some area and space to work in. Well, Airstream is not really going to be a great choice for that because there's super limited counter space in an Airstream. The refrigerator is often very small. So this is the one area that there's going to be a lot of adjustment for most people is in the kitchen. Keep that in mind. The final con we're going to talk about today is low ground clearance. Remember, we mentioned that Airstreams are aerodynamic and they're low profile. Well, to achieve that, they sort of sit down fairly low to the ground. What that means is if you want to take them boondocking or off-road, well, you better watch out because they do sit very low to the ground. Many owners who take them and use them that way often install lift kits, and then they're fine. Well, those are the pros and the cons of Airstream travel trailers. Now, that doesn't mean we covered all the pros. It doesn't mean we covered all the cons. Those are the ones that I felt that I wanted to talk about the most today. We get back to the question then. Is Airstream worth the money? My answer is this. It depends on what you want from a travel trailer. If you're a weekender, if you're a vacationer that, goes out and RVs kind of rarely, well, the cost is really going to be high for you. It's kind of hard to justify that unless you just have plenty of available cash. But for most people, it's just going to be too much if they're not going to be using their RV on a really regular basis. However, if you are a part-time RVer or a snowbird or a full-time RVer, well, that quality construction really calls to you. It's going to make that travel trailer last so well, and that's a huge attractive point in favor of Airstreams. So that point alone can really make Airstreams worth the money that you spend. Now, let me say this. If you're going to buy an Airstream, whether it's new or whether it's used, let me remind you, get it inspected. Yes, even quality manufacturers like Airstream are still having some quality control issues these days. So a certified RV inspector can help you find those problems and eliminate them, have them fixed before you take delivery. And then you'll have the Airstream that you want. Well, my final thought is this. If you decide to buy an Airstream, you can be sure that it is really a quality product. In fact, it may even last you a lifetime of your RV travels. Well, that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.